Now, at this point, Hume asks a question. What is experience based upon? So far, he said he's asked, what is our knowledge of matters of fact based upon? And he says it's based upon ideas about cause and effect, judgments about cause and effect. What is our knowledge of cause and effect based upon? He says it's based upon experience. And now he asks a question that he says has perhaps never occurred to anyone to ask before, which is, what is experience based upon? Or what is our, when we believe we know something based on experience, what is our belief in that knowledge based upon? What justifies that supposed knowledge that we have on the basis of experience? This question leads Hume to the problem that I mentioned at the beginning of talking about section 4. This is famously called the problem of induction. Induction, you may recall from having learned this in other courses, I think it's roughly the same notion of induction that's used here as is mentioned, for instance, in science courses where you learn about the inductive method and the deductive method. Induction is basically believing that future events will be like past events. That if you've seen 10 swans and they've all been white, that when you're told that there's an 11th swan just around the corner, you infer, even before you see the swan, that that swan will be white as well. Because every swan you've seen so far has been white, so you think the next swan will probably also be white. Okay. So what you're doing there when you think that the next swan will be white is you are making a judgment about swans on the basis of your experience. You're saying, I believe swans are white because every swan I've seen before has been white. Hume's problem of induction is that it seems like induction, even though it's the basis of, he thinks, everything we believe about what the world is like. I mean, everything we believe is ultimately based on everything apart from just our relations of ideas, which is a matter of like logic and just the patterns in our ideas. But when it comes to claims about the way that the world is, all of our beliefs are based on ideas about cause and effect. And all of our beliefs about cause and effect are based on what causes and effects we've seen connected with each other in the past on the basis of our experience. In other words, our views about cause and effect are based on what we could call induction. I mean, we think the next fire will be hot and the next fire might be able to burn us, and we should be careful about the next fire burning us. The next fire we see, we should be careful about it burning us, because fires we've seen in the past have been hot, and fires we've seen in the past we believe have been able to burn us, and we've seen fires burn people before. So we base our views about fire on past experience, ultimately. We base our views about fire on a belief about cause and effect, but we base that view about cause and effect on the basis of experience. And the experience, basing a view on experience, is a matter of induction, of believing that the future will be like the past. So this problem of induction is a problem of justifying the idea that the future will be like the past. What good basis do we have for believing that the future will be like the past? Hume presents this problem in two versions, so I'm just going to give you each version in order. The first version goes like this. We claim to know from, we need to be able to trust our experience, that is, our inferences on the basis of what we've experienced in the past, if we're going to be able to believe what we believe about cause and effect. But our beliefs in our experience, that is, our trust that the future will be like the past, can't be justified by our experience, because that's exactly what needs justification. So if you say, I believe the future will be like the past because the future always has been like the past in the past, that's just begging the question. The whole question is, how do you know that the actual future from this point forward will be like the actual past? You can't say the future has always been like the past in the past, because that is assuming what needs to be proven, which is that that the past provides any evidence for future beliefs at all. You might say, well, what if I say that I know the future will be like the past because I understand how fire works, and I understand that it's the movement of molecules and that generates heat. So I know you could, as Hume puts it, secret powers that produce the connection between the things that I'm witnessing. Hume says we only know anything about matters of fact, including these hidden powers of things, through knowledge of cause and effect. And we only know cause and effect through experience. So it's no good appealing to science to say, well, science says fire is hot, for instance, because science is based on claims about matters of fact, which are themselves based on claims about cause and effect, which are themselves based on experience. What we need is a justification for resting our beliefs on experience at all. We need a justification for induction itself. And so it's not good enough to say, to appeal to things like induction itself or science, which is itself based on induction itself, in order to justify induction itself. Induction itself is what we need a justification for in this line of reasoning, and we don't have one yet. The second version is presented as follows. Hume says, well, let's start out by just enumerating all the branches of human knowledge. He says, well, all the branches of human knowledge can be broken down into basically two categories. There's what he calls demonstrative reasoning, and there's what he calls moral reasoning, using the word moral similarly to how he had in section 1, but actually, unfortunately, a bit confusingly, not exactly the same. He means by moral reasoning something like reasoning concerning matters of fact. So basically all human knowledge, and this is again what he had said at the beginning of section 4, is either demonstrative, like math and logic, which means it's based on relations of ideas alone, or it is based on some claims about matters of fact, and it usually involves some probabilistic reasoning, and ultimately some inductive reasoning. Okay. Well, the question is, can either of these things, demonstrative reasoning or moral reasoning, provide a justification for judgments from experience or knowledge based on experience? And Hume's answer is no. There's no bit of demonstrative reasoning that proves that the future has to be like the past. He challenges the author he challenges the reader to come up with such a demonstrative piece of reasoning. He just says, I don't see that as possible. There's no contradiction in saying that the future won't be like the past. It's not a self-contradictory claim. So induction itself is not merely a matter of relations of ideas. It can't be justified in that way. And in the same way, to appeal to matters of fact or claims about matters of fact to try to justify experience is definitely circular argumentation, because we need to justify experience before we could trust any claims about matters of fact. It's only on the basis of experience that we have any reason to believe anything about matters of fact. So you can't start appealing to features of the universe, say the universe is regular or the universe operates according to certain laws. None of that will be adequate to justify our confidence in our experience as a guide to what will happen in the future, because all of the beliefs we have about the laws of the universe and so on are based on our experience. We can't use them to justify our experience because they are based on our experience. Our experience is the foundation, or that needs to be the justification of them. And they're only as strong as our experience is. They're only as justifiable as our experience, our inductive reasoning already is. What Hume is asking for is a justification of induction. And so far, again, we don't have it. Neither of the two branches of human knowledge, which are the only branches there are, according to him, can supply this justification. So this is where Hume ends up at the end of section 4. What has happened is he's adopted empiricist principles. He said everything we know about the world comes from experience. All of our ideas ultimately come from impressions. Just from having adopted that perspective on the human mind and how the human mind works, just from having adopted that basic set of assumptions, he's arrived at a point where he thinks he and his reader has to conclude that we have no justification for even the belief that the future will be like the past. And that means we have no justification for anything else we conclude in our sciences or in any claims about the external world. The only things we'd be able to know are just relations between ideas in our own mind. And that's a pretty difficult place to be. So Hume is not just going to stop there. He's going to go on from this point and provide offer a solution to that problem. But this is where he ends up at the end of section 4, and we'll find out how he solves it in future days and lectures.